chances that charity are interested. Because people are focused on getting their kids through college. But once the kids are out of college, people really legitimate question about it. My kids need money to me. By the time they get this money, they are not secure enough that $2 million doesn't carry them through until they're done. They've made a mistake.
Those are interesting conversations to be a part of.
They are fun. They are fun and interesting conversations where people say, yeah, this is what I want to do. And then you can ask them, hey, why do you want to do it? What is this about this organization?
Yeah, me too.
Hey Sam, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
You remind them of little things, like, hey, we're giving you a job. Have you told the organization? You haven't told the organization, and you haven't specified it out. What does that money go to? Specific thing that goes into, you want to give to, and so a lot of times it's reminding those, like, you haven't said, you haven't designated, not that we care. If you want to just open it and let them choose at the time, they would love that. They actually have no problem with that whatsoever. They probably all like it with that. But if you have a specific burden, you want to give it to the kids, or the scholarships, or the endowment, or whatever that piece is, then you should have a conversation with them and have some kind of we report to them on an annual basis, mainly because we want to feel that people are taking out goals. We don't take on they gave me a bunch of money. We want to kind of blend all the information. We don't give you specific on the individuals. So we kind of report on, here's all the people that we met with, here's all the people, here's what they were given before, in general to share, here's what they're given after, here's what they're giving to you before, here's what they're giving after. And we only, we report two numbers. We report based on recommendations that we're not 100% sure that we're acting on, but this is your discussion, this is where they want it to be. And then we also talk about the other numbers we know. They change the beneficiary designation, we know they changed it. They confirmed it. We saw the documents, or they changed their will, they brought it back, we reviewed the documents. And so we have a confirmed number, and then kind of the confirmed numbers that we focus on, I mean, those $1 million, I guess I was talking about, those are confirmed. I know that they made the changes, it's in the documents, it's not like they would have to net, they would have to actually go and take you out in order to do it out.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, those are great. I mean, those are fun conversations to have, and it's fun to see them like, oh, you give that, 2 million, there's $1 million for 2 million. No, they're not going to get it. But it is nice to have worked with an organization for a long time. I know there's one that's coming surprisingly quicker than I was used to. I met with a couple, and their wife really wanted to do something for the hospital. And her husband helped really good. And so it's kind of, their gift was a planned gift, but they would accelerate it if a few things happened. Help with the husband, or actually her husband. It was her help was really required. So then you're going to see some of those gifts. Those are sad and nice.
Yeah, that's the interesting, assuming the paradox in that field that, like, unfortunately it's that the cause and effect, the cause and benefit. But what, it is cool, like, to know, like, you're at least doing something with it that they want. Like, that's pretty neat. That's pretty neat.
Well, hey, do you have a card?
You know what? I think I do. I'm definitely going to reach out to you. I'd love to connect.
Yeah, it's always good. It's glad we do these things right. Maybe fancy knowledge, and hey, it's good to know people that work on the tech side as well.
Very much. One of not a huge business card person, so I'm going to just snap it and give it back to you.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer. That's a good way of doing it, man. Get it right in your contacts right away. I hate business cards as well. I save it long enough to put it in your contact.
And I think actually I was going to say email thread as
Yeah, shoot, so you got my email.
It's live right now. I gotta focus on the screen.
Well, grab some
It's live right now. And I've got to focus on the screen.
Should I make the screen any bigger? I can make it bigger.
No, I just focus in.
No. I mean, like up front.
that?
It seems awfully small.
Yes.
I don't know if I can though. I think Apple's way that they do it.
I think so.
So this is generally what they should be seeing on the screen, but of course it's delayed. There's the, so this is pretty live. Low latency. But I don't know how.
Right now, I gotta do this.
Well, it is. It's not much.
There it is. I just saw it was like
Yeah.
2 minutes or something like that.
Yeah. So she should be getting up there starting any time.
We got a pretty good group today.
Yeah.
Is that typical for you guys? Fill it up pretty good, or?
I think we're in pretty decent shape. This is a good group today. So we're someplace around 30, 40, and that's been typical. It's been typical lately. But they haven't scheduled as regularly monthly as they had been. And so there's a gap. I don't remember what the schedule was, but
So you guys typically do monthly meetings, or
had been doing monthly. Hadn't been for a long time. Had not been doing monthly meetings.
well. How do you do this?
Yeah, that, and it was a little
Testing.
stiff.
Too quick.
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. Are we good at the back? Great. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Cynthia Thompson. I'm Chief Development Officer for Big Brothers Big Sisters Columbia Northwest, and I'm pleased to welcome you to the first luncheon of the year for AFP, Oregon and Southwest Washington. And I'm very honored to serve as your president this year. I was past president the year before and membership VP before then. And I'm just so excited to work with an outstanding board of directors that we have coming on board. And one thing we failed to do, we missed Dev Dion at the last annual meeting. He was past president for 2 years. He chaired the National Philanthropy Award selection process, and we'd like him to come up first off and give him a gift. If we could give him a round of applause. Thank you. So yeah, we have a lot of great plans to provide value to our members this year. We're very excited. We're having a retreat afterwards. And I wanted to share something. I don't know, has anyone had a chance to go on the new website for AFP National? Have you seen that? Great. Well, there was a blog, or the president, the CEO of AFP International, he had a blog that just came out yesterday. And he pointed out nationally there are 4 key priorities. There are 4 national focus areas, but I wanted to just read them briefly to you, just the topics, and let us know, please let us know if you think these are important for us locally. I think they really are, and I hope they'll come up at the retreat. The first one is leadership development, and that's all about that fundraisers need to be leaders. And they're doing a lot of initiatives aimed at developing leaders. And I think the role we play in our organizations is really important, and that's something that may come up. The second one is the next generation of fundraisers. You probably know that we're going to have a record number of retirements coming up soon. I hope to be one in a little while. And especially we need to do things to get our younger people more involved in the field, building their career path, retaining them. So I want to get a show of hands here in the room because it helps us with planning our programming. How many people in this room have less than 5 years experience in fundraising? Oh, okay, so how many have more than 5 years? Everybody. Okay, so that's kind of the point where if you're new to the field, maybe everybody has more than 5 years. So that's great. We're seeing experienced fundraisers here. Maybe that's something we need. Are we going to get more members in the field in our organization who are younger, getting them involved? The third initiative is the Women's Impact Initiative, and they're really working on launching this new program because I feel it's probably not acceptable that we have a profession where women make up nearly 75% of all practitioners, but they account for only 30% of the leadership roles. So maybe that's something we want to look at here too. And then finally, ethics. Apparently, AFP is the only enforceable code of ethics in the profession. We know that, but we haven't done enough to tell the government, the media, other organizations, the public, the world about that. So we'll be focusing more on that. So I hope that appeals to people. Will that be something we want to tackle here? So I have a couple just administrative messages. One, we are going to have a winter social on February 28th after hours, probably about 5 o'clock at OMSI. And that is going to be sponsored by Campbell and Company. Thank you, Amy Brown. And that is a result of we want to have new programs. We're not going to have a luncheon every month here at the MAC. Actually, in March, we are co-hosting with the Northwest Plan Giving Roundtable, and then April we'll be back here. So that was kind of in response to your feedback that we go to different areas of the state, of the region, different types of programming, not always a luncheon every month. So hopefully you'll join us on February 28th at OMSI. You'll get more information on that. And my last task today is to introduce Jerry Alcock with Rose City Philanthropy. She's our co-vice president of the Professional Development Committee, and she'll introduce our speaker and some new information about the programming. Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia. Before I introduce our speaker, which I'm very excited about today, I just have a few housekeeping items. Did you know that we are live streaming today? Our chapter has worked very hard to get live streaming in place for all of these types of programs, and that is available to you when you register for a program. You can choose live streaming as an option now. And for those who are registered and streaming in today, you received an email from me about where to send your questions. So that brings me to my second housekeeping point, which is if there's a lot of ambient noise in the room during the speaker's presentation, that's difficult for our streamers to fully enjoy the program. And so if you have a question, we're going to have that question repeated through the microphone so that everyone inside and outside the room can participate fully today. And so now I have the pleasure of introducing our speaker. So Arlene Cogen is a certified financial planner and experienced philanthropic leadership consultant. Arlene's passion is fostering deep relationships, engaging the next generation, and making lasting difference through leadership philanthropy. Arlene began her career on Wall Street and spent over 20 years in the trust and investment. Desiring change and wanting to lead by example for her daughters, Arlene later acquired nonprofit expertise, helping to guide the 9th Community Foundation in the country, the Oregon Community Foundation, for almost a decade. Arlene is an accomplished speaker, trainer, coach, and the Amazon #1 best-selling author of Give to Live, Make a Charitable Gift You Never Imagined. So I actually met Arlene last month at this program, and I purchased her book, and I read it while I was on vacation over the holidays, and I love it, and I recommend it because one of the things that I thought was really valuable in it was the real-life stories that you share, Arlene, of folks that you worked with. So, plug for the book. So Arlene teaches from experience and shares what she learned during her extensive career in her book, and for all these reasons, this makes Arlene the perfect person to talk about getting advisors on board with philanthropy, which is our topic for today. So please join me in welcoming Arlene.
Okay, we're live. Thank you so much, Jerry. Oh, that's your book. That's right. There's still one up here. It's so delightful to look around the room and see so many familiar faces representing such extraordinary organizations. I'm going to shift this a little so I can see everyone better. And I also want to highlight the best mother-in-law ever is here today. My mother-in-law, Elaine, came to support me. And I just wanted to introduce her. Oop. What happened? All right. Have you ever considered that philanthropy at its core is spirituality? What would be possible if giving rose from 2% of GDP, I better unlock this so we can see the presentation, to 3% of GDP? That's better, right? And what if you were able to assist an advisor to shore up their bottom line and make a gift to your organization that you never imagined? Wouldn't that be cool? How many of you are familiar with TED Talks? We're all familiar with them? Great. Michael Norton, an associate business professor at Harvard, did a study on happiness. And he has a great TED Talk on it too, and I want to summarize it here for you today. What he did is they went up to the University of British Columbia and found a number of participants. And the study was actually on happiness. They had a group of participants, and the participants got one of two envelopes. In the first envelope was $5, and the second envelope was $20. The envelope with $5 had a little note saying, spend this money on yourself, and at the end of the day, we're going to call you and see how you feel. See if you're happier. The second envelope with $20 had the note that said, spend this money on someone else. And we're going to call you and see how you feel at the end of the day. Now, I've been up to the University of British Columbia, and it's a gorgeous university right on the water. And of course, like many universities nowadays, they have a Starbucks. Now, these participants got their envelopes, and they were really excited, and people started lining up at Starbucks. And people spent the money on themselves. They got their coffee, their caramel macchiato, and the people who also got the $20 started buying coffee for other people. Yeah, some of them spent it on other stuff, but we don't need to go there. At the end of the day, they called the first round of participants with the $5 and said, hey, do you feel happier? And there was kind of no response. They didn't feel happier or sadder. It was kind of like a, oh yeah moment. Now for the people who had $20 and actually spent it on someone else, they were like, yeah, this is really great. It is so exciting. I felt so much happier from doing it. Now what's interesting is Gallup, the World Poll Organization, did the study in over 120 countries. And they had over 200,000 participants with similar focus. Are you happier? And what they found is that there was an absolute positive correlation with people who spend money on other people are happier. So, you know that old adage, money can't buy you happiness? At the end of Michael's presentation, he basically says, if you think money can't buy you happiness, stop spending it on yourself and try spending it on other people instead. Now, because of that direct correlation, I personally say, you can buy a stairway to heaven. Okay, it's Led Zeppelin. So today we're going to go over the numbers, why philanthropy is important, assets under management, and asset retention strategy, and then conversations, critical conversations. Let's start with the numbers. 30, 410, and 90. Now, for those of you who may have seen this presentation at the Northwest Plan Giving Roundtable Conference, let some of the other people participate. Any ideas on what 30 represents? I'll give you a hint. It's 30 trillion. Does that open up any ideas? No, so the response was GDP. No. The wealth transfer. Correct. $30 trillion represents the amount of money that's going to be transferring in the next 10 or so years from one generation to the next. That's a lot of money. 410. Any guesses?
That's the Giving USA total number.
As Lon just said, it's the Giving USA total number of philanthropy for 2017. We haven't gotten the new numbers yet for 2018. And that is absolutely correct. And as we know, everywhere we look, there's need. We have injustices, we have environmental issues, we need to have more people educated, we need to help animals, we need good hospitals. Everywhere you look in our community, libraries, philanthropy touches. So that $410 billion is only 2.2% of GDP. Imagine if we rose that to 3% of GDP, that would be another $150 billion going into our communities. Wouldn't that be extraordinary? So let's try and raise that giving to 3% of GDP. 90. Anyone guess what 90 is? Call out some numbers. Guesses. Okay, I'll give you a hint. It's a percentage. What?
90% of people give
90% of people give.
something.
That is a great thing. Actually, that 410 billion, 70% of that comes from individuals. That was a really great guess, Laura. Is there anyone else who wants to take a guess at it? Oh, I want someone brave.
Donor turnover rate.
Donor turnover rate, 90%. Oh my God, can you imagine? That would be horrible. How could we sustain our fabulous organizations if we had to keep getting new donors 90% of the time? No, it's actually a number. 60 to 90% of all heirs, all Gen 2 people, will fire their parents' investment advisor within the first year of inheriting money. I'm going to say that again because it's really important. 60 to 90% of heirs fire their parents' wealth manager within the first year of inheriting money. Anyone want to guess why?
Geographic.
Geographic, that's a good guess, but that's not why.
They spent it.
They spent it. That does happen a lot also, but that's not where I'm going.
Lack of relationship.
Lack of relationship is the number one reason why heirs fire their parents' wealth managers. So this is a really big concern for money managers, for all professional advisors, that there's this huge transition. So they are scared to death. Now, let me share an example of where this really falls true. When I was at the Oregon Community Foundation, in 2010, Fred Fields passed away. Now, some of you may remember him. He was the owner of Co Industries that had the patent on plywood. He and his wife had no children, and he was a very generous donor within our community, and I'm sure some of your organizations received outright bequests from his estate. But what happened along the way is he left all of his money to charity, and the residual of his estate, the remainder after all these specific bequests, went to the Oregon Community Foundation for Arts and Education in Oregon. That dollar amount to OCF was $160 million. Now, the first day, we got an installment of a handwritten check. Okay, so pretend this is who writes checks anymore, right? Let alone a $50 million check was the first installment. And OCF took out all the stops. They had an apple cider toast. And they passed the check around to everyone. Here you go. And everyone touched it. Handwritten check. Most people wire money nowadays, so that was pretty stunning in and of itself. But at that same time that happened, two lines formed at the door of OCF. Two proverbial lines formed at the door of OCF. One was all the nonprofits saying we should still continue to get the money that Fred gave us every year. And the other was a line of all the money managers and investment people saying, well, heck, we manage Fred's money forever. We should continue to manage it in perpetuity. And because of policies and processes, they were unable to do that. So let's look at that $160 million from an advisor's perspective. Typically, advisors charge a fee for their services, and typically, I'm going to use round numbers here because we're all eating, we're a little tired. A typical investment fee would be 1% of assets under management. And so if you look at $160 million at a 1% fee, you are talking about $1.6 million in revenue for that advisor. So I would think that Fred Fields was probably one of their larger clients. And if you look at advisors and their clients, that revenue, you lose one of your largest clients. All the assets go out that door. That's huge revenue for you. So this is where advisors are really tweaked and they're really concerned of. So let's go on to why philanthropy is important. First, why philanthropy is important for an advisor's practice. Next, for our clients. And lastly, the community. So let's work on the advisor. So U.S. Trust came out with a number of studies over the past years on high net worth philanthropy, conversations with philanthropic advisors and their clients. And they came up with all this great stuff, and I'm not going to read it to you because I really hate when people read things off the slides. But I do want to read the concluding thoughts to you because it's really fascinating. And I have to look at this. The philanthropic conversation between professional advisors and their clients is important to have early and often. And while these discussions may be happening, they are falling short of their potential. Clients and individuals are looking to advisors to help them fulfill their philanthropic mission, involve the next generation, and leave a legacy. They are also seeking more values-based discussions with advisors about their philanthropy, conversations that go beyond tax, but include life goals, values, passions, so they can achieve their philanthropic ambitions for themselves, their families, and their communities. Advisors really need to get on board with philanthropy. And we start by having conversations with them. Okay. Why philanthropy is important to clients. Oh, I am off here. Go back. Okay, let's. So, personally, we know that giving money to others provides happiness based on Michael Norton and his study. We can also look to Dr. George Moll, who is head of the Dior Institute for Research and Education in Rio de Janeiro. And what they did is they actually took MRIs of people's brains to see what part of the brain was activated when talking about giving. And what's really interesting about this is that the part of the brain that lights up when people are giving to others is the prefrontal cortex of the brain. Now, what's also interesting about that is that this is the same area that lights up for great food and sex. So money definitely makes people happy. You know, talking about philanthropy will make people happy. Now, from a financial perspective of why philanthropy is important to clients, in addition to that personal feeling good about yourself, it's also great from a financial perspective because we can avoid or reduce taxes in many ways. We can gift, we can diversify different asset classes, we can increase our income. These are all things you know, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. But the last piece that we really help people with is creating a legacy. And just like the U.S. Trust study said, people want these conversations. And it's important now more than ever to start to engage our advisors so they know that by integrating philanthropy into their practices, their clients are going to be happier, it's going to be better for their business, and ultimately better for the community. So we look at that and we see, why is there this hole where money's just going away and leaving? And we know it's because there's a lack of intergenerational communication or communication with the advisor and the next generation. So what we really have to do is look at what are successful families doing that someone may be with one of these big banking institutions. Oh, you know, the Rockefellers have for generations worked with this one organization. How do advisors get to bring that to the table? And that's by helping families become resilient, passing down the life lessons, values, stories that made them successful, and not just passing down the money, but really passing down core values. Now, many of you may have heard from shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations, or are any of you familiar with that? A couple of you. Well, we didn't make that up. That happened in China over 2,000 years ago, and each kind of country has come up with their issue around resiliency. In Ireland, it's clogs to clogs. In Italy, it's stalls to stars to stalls. In India, they say peasant shoes to peasant shoes in 3 generations. So this is just a recurring pattern that we want to try and help advisors break. We want them to start talking about the values, life lessons, and stories. And as we know, as fundraisers, philanthropy is an amazing way to do that. So we have to pull out all the stops to educate our advisors. Next slide, please. So here's that 410 broken down. When I show this slide to advisors in particular, I always get a gasp. And it's not about the 30% going to religious organizations. It's about the 3% that goes to the environment and animal organizations, which is really stunning given the crisis when we look at our issues socio-politically now with our environment and animals. Hopefully we can inspire them to encourage more money to go to animals and the environment. Now we're going to get to asset under management versus asset retention. You know, before the Community Foundation, I was in the trusted investment world, as Jerry said, for over 20 years. And I got to see the inside of families in the trust world in a very unique way. I left there saying, let's put the fun in dysfunction, because people ended up in the trust world to solve a problem, and many times they couldn't think, I can solve this problem and give to charity as well. But you can do both. And when I was at the Community Foundation, it was really my job to educate advisors on how to help their clients fulfill a charitable need. But I can tell you, time after time, more advisors than not would say, Arlene, we love you. The Community Foundation is great if they just give us more money. But I'm never going to refer my clients to you because I'm going to lose those assets under management, and that asset retention is key to me. So, we have to figure out a way to get those advisors involved and get the next generation involved to take this to the next level. We have to shift their perspective, because when we look at $30 trillion of assets under management, that equates to $300 billion in fees. Now, for many asset managers, they can have between maybe 100 million of assets under management or billions of dollars under asset management. But to them, the issue remains the same. How do I retain assets and retain that revenue stream? So if they're looking at losing their top 3 clients, it could be detrimental to their practices. Okay, so now we're going to look at a typical revenue standpoint from the advisor. Now let's say they have this client. I'm using round numbers because it's a heck of a lot easier. And the client is worth $3 million, and they have 3 kids, and they do a standard plan. Each kid gets a third. They're all equal. We love them all the same. Where are you in this picture? Nah. Now, if they have an opportunity, when we go back to that 60 to 90% of asset retention, what we see here is, well, they might get 1, maybe 2, maybe 3. I don't know. Let's go on to the next page. Let's break that out into revenue. So a $3 million account is going to generate $30,000 in revenue. Each heir, when they get their third, will affect 10,000 of that revenue, 1/3 of that revenue. If the advisor is lucky, he gets one of those clients, and 20,000 is out the door. Those aren't really good numbers, right? Now let's move on to the next slide, and we're going to look at the next client. Same client, but we're going to integrate philanthropy into their estate plan. So here I'm going to use a nice round number and take 10% is going to go to charity. It's a tithing number. It's easy for us in this example, all of those great things. And this is where the advisor can say, hey, clients like you are given, why don't you give two? And they start maybe and create a small donor advised fund or start to engage with your organization and start to bring the children in. So when the advisor then helps the client with the plan, and depending on the size of the money to charity, the advisor can still manage those funds under management. There are certain platforms at your Schwab, your Fidelity, and a number of places that you can manage assets under management as an advisor. So we take a look at this, and now 10% goes to charity, which at $100,000 in this one may be able to create a donor advised fund and manage that. They have $300,000 in there, so they can still manage that asset. And then they get one kid, so they're at a 40% asset retention rate. They're still managing the charitable assets, and they have one child. Now, because they created that charitable aspect, they have a higher chance of getting a relationship with the next generation, developing that. So if they get two kids, they're now at a 60% asset retention rate. Oh yeah, the charitable piece, that's a 70% asset retention rate. And if they get the third kid, that's a 100% asset retention rate. Are you following me here? Okay, let's go on to the next slide. And this just breaks out the revenue in terms of what that advisor still receives by increasing their assets under management. Conversations. Now, advisors and conversations. How many of us have been there? You have a donor who's really excited to make a gift, and then they say to you, I want to go talk to my advisor. And they should, right? They absolutely should. Now, Jane, she was worth $2 million. And part of that $2 million was a block of Philip Morris stock that she inherited from her father, and it was really low cost basis. Probably zero. The advisor's never going to sell it. Too much capital gains, right? So we had this great discussion, and she was very much into the environment and animals. And what she did is she went to her advisor, and she even knew, she goes, I want to donate some of the Philip Morris stock, and not all of it, just a small portion of it. Maybe 10, 15%. She went to the advisor, she's so excited, and the advisor says, I don't think you should do it. You should keep the money. How many times has that happened? Well, she ended up not creating the fund at this time. But, silly. Here's another one that advisors are notorious for. My clients aren't charitable. Okay. I agree with them 100%. But that's so not true. How can you agree with that, right? My clients aren't charitable. According to Charitable Estate Planning Northwest, Gene Christian's group, 80% of all individuals are charitable receptive. So what does that mean? We have 20% on this side who are altruistic and want to change the world, and we have 20% on this end who really aren't charitable, right? And then we have 60% in the middle. So you can't walk around saying people aren't charitable without having that conversation first. We need to help train those advisors on the conversations that they need to have. Now keep in mind, conversations, advisors are great at asking conversations, and they have these intake forms. Have you ever worked with an advisor in an intake form or fill it online? It could be 15, 20 pages, right? How old are you? Are you married? Are you single? Do you have kids? Do you have any special needs? Are you expecting an inheritance? What are all your assets? Where are they held? The list goes on and on and on and on and on. But in reality, they ask very few questions about philanthropy. In fact, they may only have one question about philanthropy on their whole data intake form. And you know what it is? Any guesses?
Give to church.
Do you give to church? Close.
You want to get to charity?
Do you want to give to charity? Yeah. So basically, it's, are you charitably inclined? It's a yes/no answer on their intake form. Philanthropy and charity is not a yes/no question. It's just not. We understand that. We have to help them incorporate it. Now, here's another great one from advisors that they'll say to you. Well, my clients, charity begins at home, right? And charity does begin at home, but it doesn't end there. So what we like to do is help advisors know that they can have great conversations with their clients and help lead them in that direction of philanthropy. Hey, other clients who are similar to you in a situation give to charity. What do where do you see that in your plan? Those open-ended questions. And, as gift planners, these are some basic ones, but you can actually help advisors by sharing some of the questions you ask to really delve deep so they get to know their clients' values. Does that make sense? Most advisors are really uncomfortable going here and they don't have the patience. But if you bring that U.S. Trust study to their door and show them, you're missing out here. There's an opportunity for you to retain assets. It really shifts their perspective. Now I'm going to go look at a couple opportunities in framing here. So we have Chloe. This is a specific bequest. And Chloe is an LOL. Anyone know what LOL stands for?
Give it away, little old lady.
Little old lady. LOL meant little old lady long before it meant laugh out loud or any of those other things. Chloe is widowed. Her kids are all successful. She doesn't have a ton of money, but she has a great advisor. And he's always been very encouraging to her to be philanthropic. And she notices that every year Chloe gives $100 to an animal organization. And she would want to make sure that animal organization receives that money in perpetuity. So basically, the advisor says, look, you can endow that gift, times it by 20, make a $2,000 beneficiary designation gift to the animal organization, and you will endow that $100 at 5% payout in perpetuity. Now, that sounds great, and Chloe is thrilled to death, but why am I sharing this story with you? This didn't help. You didn't retain assets under management. Why am I sharing this story with you? No guesses? Okay. First of all, Chloe walks away making a gift she never imagined. And she is tickled pink. She's flying high. She's happy. The advisor gets a ton of goodwill. I have this advisor. He helped me make a gift I never imagined. It is awesome. Chloe gets acknowledged in the community. Wow, she made an endowment gift. She becomes, on their legacy society, and it's very exciting. And the kids are thrilled too because mom's happy. So while they didn't retain any assets under management, goodwill with the client, great will in the community, it's a fabulous way for them to help clients. Trusted advisor, the whole bit. Next, we're going to go on to a percentage bequest. Now, the advantage, as most of you know, of a percentage bequest is typically higher than a specific bequest. So we like to encourage those. Now, for this couple, Barry and Beth, they had property worth $1 million. And let's just call that their only asset right now, just to simplify the story. They deeded 5% of the property to a charity. And it was the food bank. They had food, they had food insecurities going up, and they wanted to ensure that the food bank was always there helping people like themselves in the future. So when they passed away, that 5% equated to a $50,000 gift. And they were thrilled. The food bank was thrilled, and the kids each got, they had 3 kids, and they each received $316,000 outright gift. So this is great. Now let's look at what did this achieve, right? What about the advisor? What about the assets under management? Where does this come into play for them? So community good, food bank, outright gift to charity, and this one, and I apologize, this isn't even an asset retention, this is a typo. I'm gonna get on this. They converted a house, which wasn't being advised by the investment advisor, into almost $950,000 of marketable assets with the 3 years. So they had the opportunity to take a piece of real estate and convert it into assets under management. So they've actually increased their book of business. It's not even retaining a book of business. Are you following me? Now, as a reminder to this group, because I know it's a reminder you guys are all smart, 80% of people's wealth is not held in marketable securities. So this is a huge opportunity with property for people to convert to assets under management. Make sense? Awesome. Next week, I'm back to Fred Fields again, the residual bequest. So as I said before, he made a ton of bequests. And they were to organizations like Lewis and Clark, OHSU, U of O, OMSI. And that equated to, like I said, $1.6 million of assets under management. And it was all sent to the Community Foundation for Arts and Education. So this was a true missed opportunity, because I want to share with you in this story that not only did OCF not know that they were getting this residual bequest, I don't think most of the other organizations did not know the size in which of the gift they would receive from Fred Fields. So for the advisors, oh my God, what a missed opportunity. He could have set up a private foundation and they could have been managing it. There could have been so many other opportunities to retain those assets and that revenue stream. And instead, they started the proverbial line at OCF. Huge missed opportunity for the client. Let's go on. Next, we have Jordan and Margaret. And we're going to just say all their wealth is in retirement accounts. And they have about $4 million. The son's successful, they don't need the money, but they want to pass down those life lessons, values, stories to their son. So they decide that they're going to split it 50-50. Half to the son, half to an advised fund where their son, or the foundation, where their foundation can pay out money. Now, part of this was so that their son can receive an appropriate inheritance. Did he really need, oops, I'm messing up numbers here, $4 million? No. So let's make a difference in the world, in the community. It helped make an appropriate inheritance. The donors got complete use of those assets during their life. It supported the causes they cared about. And here for the advisor, there's a 50 to 100% asset retention strategy. If they have to build the relationship with a son, they get a $2 million investment portfolio. If they create that foundation and they're still the investment advisor, they get the other $2 million. So it's 100% asset retention. It engages the heir in the foundation. We have a great situation here. Is everyone following me? Any questions? Great, let's move on. Now we're going to go to our flip CRT. So in this instance, our donor, client, is 70 years old, and she has a piece of property, and 50% of it equates to $5 million. And she decides to put this in a charitable remainder trust because she is tired of being a landlord and fixing toilets and doing yard maintenance. She's 70, she is done with it. So she puts it in this trust, and the property is sold, and she's going to get a 5% payout for the rest of her life. Her deduction is about $2.6 million, and she's going to get $250,000 annually once the property is sold and reinvested. So this is really increasing her income, and she loses that headache of managing, the property. This is another instance where all of a sudden the advisor has that other 50% of the assets that they can manage individually for the client, as well as setting up in the trust and possibly managing it in the trust. Here is another great example of helping advisors increase their assets under management. Remember, 80% of assets are not marketable securities. That is a very important number to remember. Now, as fundraisers, I get to go here with you. I can't do this with the advisors. But how many of you are familiar with Abraham Maslow and that hierarchy of needs? There are a few of you out there. Well, there are 5, in the original pyramid, there are 5 needs with self-actualization, achieving a higher purpose at the top. And advisors get to help clients do that. We get to help clients do that through philanthropy. But what's really cool, in 1990, long after Abraham Maslow passed away, they actually added 3 new levels to the hierarchy. And there was one over self-actualization. And the one over self-actualization is transcendence. And that's what we get to do as fundraisers every day. Transcendence is helping others self-actualize. So we are at the pinnacle of the hierarchy of needs as fundraisers. Lucky us. We have dream jobs. Now, as Jerry said, I've just come out with my book, Give to Live. And if you would like to be entered into a drawing for a free autographed copy at the end of the presentation, there are cards on your table that you can fill out with evaluations of comments. If you want to add, what you thought of the presentation, anything, please start to fill those out now. We're going to be collecting them, and I'm going to be doing a drawing shortly. And Give to Live is a great book, as Jerry, thank you for reading it, and I'm going to promote it a little here. I will be also selling books at that table outside at the end of the presentation. It's really set up where I talk about the brain science of giving and happiness, and then it goes into really basic giving during life and through your estate plan. Shares a bunch of lovely stories, a lot more than I share today, of individuals who gave, who may have incorporated a very difficult family situation. And then there's a chance for personal reflections after each of those stories are shared. So people can start to identify their core values, what they want to do, what are the causes they care about. And then this book ultimately sends them right back to their money manager or their advisor to start those conversations. So it's a tool that I made for you as fundraisers to give to donors. It is also a tool I made for advisors to give to their clients to start opening up that conversation. So, has everyone filled out their little cards? For those of you who are streaming and watching, I want you to know that automatically your name has been added to the list of people for the drawing, so you might be one of the lucky winners as well. So if you're ready, we can start to collect these now, and I'll do the drawing while we ask some questions. Does anyone have any questions? Yes?
So, how do you create a relationship with an advisor, or even know who an advisor is, especially if the donor doesn't offer that?
Great. So the question for those who are streaming is, how do you even get to know an advisor? How do you engage them? Where are they? Especially if your client won't tell you, the donor won't tell you. Does that summarize it? So this is a really great question. Ask your donor who their advisors are. And if they're hesitant to share with you, see, here's the thing. As a donor, besides their spouse, clients look at their financial advisors, their professional advisors, next in terms of making philanthropic decisions. And that advisor actually wants to know what are the relationships on the other side, right? As an advisor, I want to do my due diligence. Is the organization a place that you know, like, and trust? Do they have the financials? Are they a well-managed organization? And you should encourage your donor to get their advisors involved in your organization, so they can help make that educated decision by actually coming to meet you or meet the executive director. It's really key. And if you're a client and your advisor is telling you, no, I don't want to go meet them, well, that certainly sends a red flag. Why wouldn't they want to meet a place that you're considering giving money to? Did that answer your question? Great. Any other questions?
I have a question. So when you're meeting with advisors and you start talking about philanthropy and the critical conversations with their clients, and they say, oh, I do that, I know how to do that, and you know that maybe they could use some help, how do you entree into that when you want to give them advice on stories and so forth?
Okay, so the question was, you're working with an advisor and they go, oh yeah, I know and I do that. And the reality is that they don't. So how do you help engage them more to make sure they actually learn that habit or activity? Does that sum it up, Allie?
Because I'm just wondering, they might have the, do you want to give to charity on the survey? And that's, as we know, that's not a conversation. So I'm just curious, how do you help train them when,
Yeah, so how do you help train them? A couple ways to help train them. Get a copy of the U.S. Trust Survey, send it to them, highlight the area. Your clients want this. It sounds stupid, but, we all need little reminders. The second thing is, we've all been around fundraising long enough, and we've seen those great questions to ask your donors. Share it with them. Share the questions that you would ask your donors with advisors so they can start integrating deeper conversations. Well, why is that specifically important to you? What happened? What do you want to see going forward that won't happen again? Was it a positive experience? Was it a negative experience? They want to have those questions to ask. They've just never been handed them, because think about it. As a certified financial planner, philanthropy was one chapter in one section of my whole course of getting my certification. The same is true for attorneys, right? Or CFAs or what CPAs. Philanthropy is such a small part of their education. There's no way they can know it all. So everything you can do to give them and help, these are great conversations to learn more about why that cause is important to you. Does that answer your question? Great. Amy?
I'm just going to comment. I've noticed in some cases, thank you, nonprofits that have built relationships with principals of some of these investment firms, and some locally in particular, where they are philanthropic individuals, and so they might build a relationship with the nonprofit, and then instead of, in lieu of giving cards or whatever to their clients, they actually promote them. You've probably seen these too. You probably received them. They mentioned that they've made a gift to the particular charitable organization for the year, and I know College Possible's here. I know that they had that happen for them, and I believe, I can't remember the other organization I've worked with, but that's just another way of just building that relationship with your organization, with the individuals, and then hopefully having them consider you as their beneficiary for the year.
That was great. And
What happens, or how do you redirect back to the donor when the donor hands everything back off to their advisor and the advisor then becomes the gatekeeper? How do you get the donor back involved? Because we've had a situation where a donor wanted us to engage with their advisor. We thought initially it was just going to be okay, they're going to do their due diligence, and then now it's just like everything has to go through the advisor. So how do we make sure that both the advisor and the donor stay equally engaged in the conversation?
so I couldn't repeat Amy's. Is using the microphone being okay, great, so I don't have to repeat that. How do you re-engage the donor once they have passed it all off to their financial advisor, or their advisor was the question. And I think that is a great question. How many of us in the room have experienced that? A few of us? No one? Wow, you're the only one, Anthony. No, so really I would say you need to talk to the donor and say, can we meet together? Let's meet together. I want to make sure we're always meeting together with the advisor, drag them along. You're an important client. This organization is important to you. Does that help?
A little bit.
Any other questions? Okay, no more questions. That being said, I just want to say, as fundraisers, you can go to the next one, you have an awesome opportunity to help clients self-actualize and help them buy a stairway to heaven. That being said, I am now going to do the drawing for the free autographed copy of the book, and anyone, I'm going to count on you to pick the card. And it is Arlene Cogen, who already has a book. do you mind if I give it to someone else, Eileen?
Oh, I can give it to one of my donors.
There you go. I will autograph it for one of your donors. Well, thank you, everyone, and I'll be selling books out front after the presentation. And answering questions. And let me shut this off.
I'm not doing the wrap-up, but we do have a gift for you, which is right here. Thank you so much for your time today. Yes.
Who's going to the AFP International Conference? It's just coming around the corner, still time to get in. Okay. Try to make it hold out.
kind of tame the room a little bit. Okay, good.
So now it's gone silent. So you ended it? But